Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reka Mutaraj here at KHOU at our station. It's 1:11, and we are standing by to hear from Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo. She's going to be giving us an update on that pipeline fire that is still burning in the Deer Park area for 4 days now. Now, we have some updated information just this morning. Police revealing a criminal investigation is underway. They have recovered human remains from that white SUV that was found completely burned out next to the pipeline, as you can see from Air 11 video there just a moment ago. Also, we are hearing from Energy Transfer, the company that owns the pipeline. Officials there say the fire should be completely out by this evening. We're hoping Judge Hidalgo can give us more in the way of information and timeline for that. And of course, cleanup efforts that we know will be underway soon enough. Again, this fire has been burning for more than 60 hours now after that explosion that happened on Monday morning. Day 4, the fire, though, dwindling in the last couple of days. That's been a good thing, significantly smaller than what we saw initially when that explosion first happened. Again, human remains were found inside that white SUV. That has been a question that folks have been wondering about for a while now. Authorities were able to tow it away. The Deer Park Office of Emergency Management says that it's going to take the Harris County Medical Examiner a while to be able to process those remains in the vehicle that was found there. So we're going to be waiting a while for an identification on that. In the meantime, the evacuation order that was in place for that area, for the Deer Park and LaPorte neighborhoods there, people are now allowed to return to their homes and their businesses if they were not damaged, if it is safe to go. The Walmart parking lot in the vicinity has also reopened this morning, so that's important to note as well. Again, as we are waiting to hear from Judge Lina Hidalgo, we're taking a look at some video that we have shot over the last couple of days. Again, that white SUV in question, a criminal investigation underway. As you can see, that car completely burned out, so it's going to take them a while to figure out who exactly was driving that vehicle and what happened and what forced that vehicle to drive through a metal fence, we believe, and into that pipeline, causing that explosion on Monday morning. All of this is happening, if you're familiar with the area, at Spencer Highway near East Boulevard. This is near the Brook Glen neighborhood. That is the neighborhood that saw a lot of damage because of just the intense heat from that pipeline fire. To recap a little bit, on Monday evening, the city of Deer Park did confirm that the fire was caused by that SUV that crashed into through the fence nearby the Walmart and into that pipeline. And hundreds of residents from that area between Luella Drive and Canada, and then again between Spencer Highway and Oak Haven, were evacuated due to the fire. We also were told that 2 elementary schools at the time had to be evacuated along with the HEB and the Walmart in the nearby parking lot, I believe on the east side of that pipeline. But again, the evacuation order has been lifted for Deer Park and LaPorte. People are allowed to return to homes there, businesses there, survey the damage, of course, making sure that conditions are safe to do that. And again, the hopeful news from Energy Transfer this morning that owns the pipeline, saying that the fire should be completely out by this evening. The fire is burning out residual natural gas, and the company is actually in the process of installing specialized pipeline isolation equipment on both sides of the damaged area, so then they can remove and replace the damaged parts of that line and get that fixed up as soon as possible. But of course, it doesn't feel like soon enough for folks in the area who were completely blindsided by that explosion on Monday. It did rattle on a lot of nerves and cause a lot of damage, especially to homes in the area that backed up along that easement where that pipeline is. So there is going to be a long recovery process in that, just to rebuild a lot of the things that frankly just melted because of that intense heat. All right, again, we're standing by to hear from Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, hoping to hear her speak. She was scheduled to go on at 1:15, so we're going to take a few moments and wait and see when they'll come up, and we'll be back when that starts.
not been satisfied with how much the timeline has changed. I haven't seen this kind of a change in timeline since the ITC fire in 2019, and so that's part of the reason why I wanted to come and really hear for myself and ask all the questions with everybody present. And what I gathered is that even though the local fire experts, etc., can't exactly pinpoint why there have been these changes in timelines, they do believe that the company is operating in good faith, and it was just something that they didn't foresee. As far as the gases, the way they've explained it to me is it's like when you put gas in your car. And so there's the liquid gasoline, and then there are the gases that you can smell coming out. So these materials that flow through the pipeline expand a whole lot more than gasoline. And those are the gases that have been pouring out of where the valve used to be and igniting. Right now, since that has kept going and they've taken the pressure down to zero, then what's left is just residual vapors. So the residual vapors are the little bit that's still part of the liquids, and then of course they're going to have to take out the liquid that's there. So what's happening now? They are putting stopples about 1.25 miles apart. You can see the stopple already being installed on one side. On the other side, they're still waiting for the stopple to arrive. It's a little bit delayed, but everyone is working, as I said, in good faith per all the first responders. As soon as both those stopples get in there, they're going to create a vacuum and get the rest of the liquid and the rest of the vapors out. And then once that is done, they'll go to where the valve used to be and basically cover it up. So the challenge there, my question is, what could go wrong? And what could go wrong is they haven't seen exactly what that valve looks like when there's no fire there, right? And so the idea is to cap it and put and weld it and put what they call a saddle sleeve on there. But depending on how large the opening is and what it looks like, that may take more time or less time. The other possible concern is whatever material from the surrounding pipelines having any sort of flammability, which of course would put first responders at risk. And so for that reason, our hazmat teams are still out here, and they're going to be out here until this is the incident is completely over. And they're measuring the air quality and is specifically looking for those kinds of flammable materials exactly where the work is being done. Farther out into the community, our pollution control department continues to measure the quality just out of an abundance of caution, but really the concern is right where the hole is. After they've pushed the vapors out of the line and they've been able to cap that, it becomes more of a maintenance issue, is the way they've explained it to me. And so it's a matter of, okay, what do we do with this chunk of pipeline that had a problem? Where do we go from here? Residents were allowed to return to their homes as of yesterday midday. There are still 8 residences without power, and we're working with CenterPoint to determine why they're still out and how quickly they can get power back on. My bigger concern, I guess the two were, what exactly is happening? Why is this taking so long? And why does the timeline keep changing? The other piece is on the residents. And so I just visited with several residents who were impacted, and the stories really are heartbreaking. There's a couple of residents whose spouses were home at the time, or who they themselves were home at the time. They talk about the entire house shaking, and about how many of them don't want to live there anymore. They're scared of the area. The playground right next to the homes is totally charred, gray. A lot of it is sort of burnt down. So one of the residents talked about, what's going to happen when the grandkids come and see that. Folks knew for the most part that these pipelines were there, but they never thought they were a big issue. And so one of the things that we want to look at going forward is what can we do so that elsewhere in the county, these pipelines and valves that are above the earth can be protected by concrete, as opposed to simply these fences that obviously, as we saw, you can ram through. And so the theory is perhaps because these pipelines and these gauges were here before the neighborhood was built, they never came back and reinforced it. But where else in the county might we have that problem? So that's something that I'm going to ask our departments to look at. The Precinct 2 Commissioner, Adrian Garcia's team, continues to verify the quality of the roads, so they're out here. You can see them working on that. And Centerpoint, of course, on their piece. We are talking about with the residents also the help that they're receiving. They feel that Energy Transfer has been very helpful and forthright. Sometimes when we have issues like this where a company needs to help the residents, they will ask for some sort of indemnification in exchange. The residents are quite savvy, and they've all said, they wouldn't send something like this, and really the company has been great in terms of they've just sent receipts for food, for hotels, and they've been reimbursed. The question the residents have, of course, is what's going to happen when those expenses become larger. They do have home insurance, but you still have to pay some of that. One of the residents I spoke with, his car was destroyed, and he needs his car in order to go to work. And so right now, he wants to talk to Energy Transfer about how they can help him with that, because he hasn't been working, and of course that's an issue for the family. And then of course the issue of power, which we're already working on. The final piece I will mention is just the thank yous. I do think this absolutely needed to be better protected. I think whether or not it was built before the neighborhood or whatever, I think it is incumbent on these companies to maintain the area in such a way, especially if you're by a road, that it's not going to be easy to trespass like that. On the other hand, we know that this was an accident, but I do think just seeing how it's done elsewhere, and especially elsewhere in the county, that there needed to have been a lot more protection. That said, we've worked a lot of these incidents. This is the worst one I've seen since ITC, and that was what the firefighters echoed as well. And I'm really grateful to the firefighters for running toward a 700-foot fire. It was really hot. You could feel the heat through your windshield. The residents, one of them was talking about how the firefighters took his hose and lay it on the roof so that it would spill water onto his car, and that saved his car. And so they really did amazing. And the coordination has been particularly good. Everyone involved that I've talked to, and I agree as well, has said this is probably one of the best incidents in which everybody's coordinating really well, and in which the company is very transparent about what's happening and what's in there. Sometimes they won't tell us what the materials are, and we'll have to dig for that kind of thing. But of course, that doesn't mean that they're without fault, and we're still trying to work to make sure that these residents are looked after. So that's the gist of it. I am going to talk about this again in Spanish, and then I'll take some questions. Como ven, el fuego todavía está ardiendo, pero es mucho más pequeño. ¿Por qué es más pequeño? Porque hace un par de días lograron crear dos abrazaderas para aislar una sección de 20 millas en esa línea. Entonces, estos líquidos que pasan a través de esa línea subterránea son, imagínese la gasolina que usted le pone al automóvil. La gasolina es el líquido, pero también hay vapores que uno puede oler. Bueno, estos materiales, estos líquidos, tienen vapor igual y expanden mucho más que la gasolina. Entonces, ese vapor ha venido saliendo con alta presión, y al poder cerrar esos dos lados de la línea, ya salió la gran cantidad del vapor. La presión está en cero. El vapor que viene saliendo es el residuo que queda de ese líquido. Entonces, ¿qué sigue ahora? Están poniendo dos tapones más cerca. Tienen 1 milla y 1/4 de milla en total. 1.25 millas de distancia. Ya instalaron uno, están esperando que el otro llegue y en ese tapón ahí ya van a contener lo último del líquido que queda y después cuando ya acabe, se apague totalmente el incendio, entonces llegarán a cubrir donde estaba la válvula. Esa parte es un poco difícil porque no se sabe exactamente qué hay bajo todo ese fuego. No se sabe si el hueco es grande o pequeño y van a tener que hacer ese trabajo. Puede que tarde un tiempo y después de eso ya se convierte en un trabajo de reparación que van a hacer con el resto de la línea, con ese pedazo de línea. Entonces, por ahora estamos todavía monitoreando el aire, especialmente al lado de donde están los respondistas, para asegurarnos que no haya ningún producto que se pueda incendiar. Hay otras líneas ahí también que puedan tener pequeños orificios y más allá también a la comunidad. En cuanto al hecho de que esto ha tardado tanto tiempo, ha sido una de mis preguntas principales. No he visto desde el incendio de ITC, no había visto un incidente en el cual cambiara tanto la proyección de cuándo se iban a solucionar las cosas. Entonces, de verdad insistí muchísimo y están de acuerdo los bomberos, los expertos, que la compañía está trabajando en buena fe, con buena actitud y de repente son cosas que no habían predicho, pero el análisis es que en general todo está caminando hacia donde debe caminar. Fuera de eso, el tema de los residentes regresaron a los hogares ayer. Todavía hay 8 casas sin electricidad. Estamos trabajando con Centerpoint para ver qué tan rápido se pueden recibir nuevamente la luz. Pero la situación es bien trágica. Las familias pues muy asustadas aún. Hay familias, personas con las que hablé hoy día que estaban en la casa cuando la explosión sucedió, otros que tienen parientes que estaban en la casa, están traumatizados. La casa se movió totalmente, una explosión, ese incendio enorme y ya no quieren vivir ahí. Les da miedo vivir ahí. Sabían que habían líneas, habían visto eso, pero nunca se les ocurrió que fueran tan vulnerables. Entonces, otra pregunta y otra meta que tenemos a futuro es cómo fortalecer las áreas alrededor de estas líneas, porque ahorita hay una cerca que este automóvil pudo penetrar fácilmente. Normalmente eso es concreto, alrededor de las líneas, alrededor de esas válvulas. Entonces, de pronto la teoría es que como esas líneas se instalaron antes de que se construyera el vecindario, el Walmart, todo esto, quedaron con la cerca. Pero en general me parece la responsabilidad de estas compañías poder fortalecer toda esa área del perímetro y también, asegurarnos nosotros como condado que las demás válvulas en el condado sí están bien protegidas y si no, al menos alertar al público de la situación. En cuanto a las necesidades de los residentes, están agradecidos que la compañía los ha reembolsado por costos como comida, estadía en hoteles, pero no saben qué irá a suceder con los costos más altos, como un hotel, un automóvil. Un señor, por ejemplo, se le derritió el carro, lo necesita para trabajar, está viendo, y esa es la pregunta que seguiremos haciendo hacia Energy Transfer, y pues sí, deben ellos responder por esto, porque debían haber protegido mejor esa línea tan peligrosa. Fuera de eso, la comunicación ha sido buena entre todos los respondistas, ellos y Energy Transfer. Energy Transfer ha comunicado muy bien los retos, el material y finalmente le quiero agradecer a todos los bomberos. Fue un incendio de 700 pies, nadie había visto algo así, fuera de ITC es el peor incendio que esos bomberos han visto en sus carreras. Esperemos que no vuelvan a ver uno así. Y fueron directo a ese incendio, a proteger a sacar a toda la gente, a proteger los hogares como pudieron. Hay un automóvil de otro señor que pudieron salvar porque agarraron la manguera del señor que estaba al lado de la casa, la pusieron sobre el automóvil y pusieron el agua a que saliera y cayera sobre el automóvil. Entonces son cosas así, realmente pensando mucho en la comunidad, y por eso les quiero agradecer. Seguiremos monitoreando la calidad del aire alrededor de la válvula, también en la comunidad, y fuera de eso, ver y verificar que la comunidad reciba la ayuda sin que haya ningún tipo de cláusula que obligue a la comunidad, por ejemplo, a no demandar. Por ahora no se les ha pedido firmar nada así, entonces le agradecemos eso a la compañía. Before I take some questions, I want to also mention, combine the folks that have said, that they feel comfortable even with the changes in timeline, and that, that has really been a big concern of mine. And, it's over 120 years of combined experience. So at this point, I think we're really not in a position to push back the company that they're using for these to cover up these two sides of the pipeline, the mile and a quarter. It is a very, very well respected company that has pioneered this process. So I feel comfortable that we've done all the due diligence in terms of going forward from here.
Judge, who will be in charge of checking the structural integrity of these homes, and what kind of lasting impact, if any, are these families facing? Obviously, it's been days and lots of hours of heat pouring into these homes.
In terms of checking the structure, that's another thing that would come at residents' costs if the company it doesn't help with that. And so they are looking forward to approaching them. What I heard from the residents, they haven't heard the company say no. They've been too busy to visit the hotel where they are and say, can you help us with these heavier lifts? But they are concerned about it. It's the fire and then the water that had to be poured on the homes so that they wouldn't burn even more. In terms of the long-term impacts, first of all, there's mold in some homes, there's mildew on clothing, there's windows that have been blown open, there are cars that look melted, something as minute but symbolic as a doorbell in one of the homes totally melted. And that is in theory fixable, but the residents that I asked, do you think you will stay? The general response was no, because we now know what can happen here. There are some folks who do want to, but mostly it was not. So that I think this is definitely the kind of thing that would be traumatizing for anyone who experiences it. You just don't expect these things to happen. And I hope that they will join us in advocating for there to be stronger barriers around these areas all around the county, because we do have these lines flowing throughout our county, and there are areas where the pipes come above ground so that they can be checked and for pressure and maintained, etc. But most immediately, it is waiting for the insurance adjusters, securing funding, I hope, from the company to pay whatever is left, and then identifying, how they're going to rebuild the rest of their lives.
This morning it was announced that the body was recovered from the driveway, led to all this, and now a criminal investigation is starting. Can you kind of give us your thoughts on that criminal investigation underway?
Yeah, I'm glad they're looking into it. I think it's always helpful to look at things from all angles. Beyond that, I'm afraid I don't have any details that you guys don't already have. It's just the time to let both the investigations go underway and then just see what happened.
I know you mentioned the air quality testing several times when you were giving your remarks in Spanish. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys have seen so far with the readings? I know there's obviously private readings as well as the state readings, but what you've seen so far, and are they concerning to you at all as a county leader?
We have all been collaborating quite well. Our pollution control department, for example, they've had people working extremely long shifts. There's limited staff and equipment, and so they've partnered with the city of Houston as well as the state to be able to have that broader coverage. And so there is that coordination. Generally, the readings have been satisfactory. There was a period of time where we were seeing readings beyond the allowable number of 34, and that's when they went back with additional devices and figured that it must have been some sort of fluke because they could not find those readings again. I don't think it's ever acceptable to have that kind of a fire shooting off into the community. Even if we can't measure something noxious down here, you can see the smoke, you can see the black smoke, you can see this big fire, and I understand that a lot of this industry is the lifeblood of our community, and we're thankful for that, for the jobs, for the competitiveness, for the growth. At the same time, I do think that we all need to continue leaning forward on this kind of thing, on, you know, let's put a concrete barrier around like what is done elsewhere. Unfortunately, the regulations that we can implement based on state law are very, very limited. I highly doubt, we'll look into this, but I highly doubt that we can say require stronger barriers. But I think, you know, hopefully this will encourage the various companies to lean forward and really try to address these things before we see a tragedy like this one. I want to make one other point about the firefighters. Obviously, the driver died, and that was, you know, an accident, and they'll determine if it was more than that. But the fact that nobody lost their lives, that is a huge testament to the firefighters, the first responders, and their quick decision to get people out of the homes.
Judge, quick question for you. You talked about your concern with the timeline of how long this has taken. Energy Transfer is expecting for this repair to be done today, and the fire to be extinguished by tonight. If that doesn't happen, has your team or have you thought about what those next steps look like? Excuse me, to go into day 5.
We're continuing to check with multiple sources, and I always like to trust but verify. And so, you know, we have our own fire marshal's office. We also have the fire departments here, and we have experts independent of the county that don't have any kind of interest with us or with the companies to just say, hey, give this another look. And so that's what we've been doing so far. If it goes beyond what it's been, we'll ask the same questions. I do think, you know, my being so insistent with all these groups of people and saying, you know, but why is it changing? And ultimately they said, I don't know, but I don't think that it's anything nefarious. It might have just been they didn't know either. And so so for now, you know, I think I need to accept that, and then I wouldn't be surprised if it goes longer, given how the timeline has been stretched so far. I think the damage has been done in terms of the neighborhood, and then we'll just, as we go along, if anything looks odd, we'll look into it. But, you know, by all accounts, this is really a whole lot more under control. The incident is not over, and that's why the first responders are still going to be here. The hazmat team's still going to be monitoring. Pollution control still going to be monitoring. But, you know, it's fitting that the community is able to begin looking at the state of their homes.
¿Nos podría explicar un poco más en español el hecho de que a usted le gustaría que en estos lugares hubieran tal vez muros de contención más fuertes para evitar este tipo de situación?
Sí, nos lo hemos preguntado estos días. ¿Por qué fue tan fácil que un automóvil destruyera esa cerca y creara un accidente tan enorme, tan peligroso? Es un incendio que estos bomberos no habían visto en toda su carrera. De repente se compara con el incendio de ITC, si es que participaron en eso. Entonces la respuesta es que hay muros de concreto alrededor de áreas como esta, de otros sitios, en otras partes del condado. ¿Por qué no se desarrolló protección más duradera aquí? Dado que hay grandes calles, hay mucho comercio, hay áreas residenciales, entonces eso es algo que le quiero pedir a la compañía, a las demás compañías, y como condado pedirle a nuestros departamentos. No tenemos la habilidad de forzarlos a que construyan algo más fuerte, porque la ley estatal hacia esas compañías es bastante débil, pero sí podemos identificar dónde haya un problema como este para que así se sientan obligados a manejar esto. Y ahí es donde la compañía dice, bueno, esto no fue nuestra culpa, fue un automóvil que se estrelló contra la válvula, pero para mí pues sí fue porque ellos no protegieron bien estas líneas.
If I can ask an off-topic question, this morning the Attorney General announced that he plans to sue Harris County again for upland repairs, calling it a welfare scheme. Can I get your reaction on that same lawsuit?
We thought the program, and we knew that the program was legal when we first created it. They were extremely late and inconsistent in fighting against it. As we've discussed, the program had run in Austin and San Antonio without issues. We then created a new program to make sure that they no longer had the claim they were purporting to make, and then they're saying it's illegal again. And so I don't think it's about legality. I don't think it's about policy. I think, as always, enjoys the headlines. It's unfortunate for the community, but what we're looking at now, which we decided from when we thought he might do something like this, is just ensure that those dollars go toward addressing poverty in Harris County. We know that this is one of the most effective ways per the research that's being done, but there's always other strategies, and we're just going to keep that commitment. Okay, thank you guys. Yeah.
Jueza,
Dígame.
esta mañana se confirmaba lo que fue la remoción del auto de la escena y también el hallazgo de restos humanos. ¿Tiene alguna información de cuántas personas iban a bordo de este vehículo al momento de voltear la válvula y provocar la explosión de incendio?
No tengo información adicional acerca del automóvil ni las víctimas. Lo que sí sé es que hay investigaciones por el lado civil y criminal. Me parece bien que investiguen por todos los ángulos y ya basado en eso veremos qué sale.
Ok, tenemos que ir.
Okay, thank you guys.
Just an info?
Yeah.
Sorry, could I get the latest updates? Just one more.
We just heard from Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo with an update on that pipeline fire that has been burning in Deer Park since Monday. Her biggest concern at the moment seemed to be that local experts couldn't seem to pinpoint a timeline as to when that fire would be put out. She said she had concerns about that, but after talking to officials on the ground, she was reassured that the company, Energy Transfer, is operating in good faith. A couple highlights as to what she said this afternoon. What's happening right now? She said the pressure in the pipeline is now down to zero. So what is burning is residual natural gas. Workers there are trying to put stopples on either side of that valve. Essentially, I guess they'd be creating a vacuum to suck out the rest of the liquid that is in there. But the real challenge comes after that. How do they cap that giant hole, the pipeline there? Until the fire is out, workers can't really get a clear look at the damage that was done to the valve. So they're concerned about how they're going to be able to close it, to cap the valve, and also the concerns about flammability. This is natural gas. Obviously, we saw that massive flame burning for days. So there are risks with that because there are other pipelines in the vicinity. Her big concern, however, also was how do we protect those pipelines in the future beyond a chain link fence that clearly an SUV was able to drive through and then hit that pipeline, starting this fire. So she says Harris County authorities are looking at where else in the county do we have a similar problem to this, where we see these pipelines on these easements that are so close to neighborhoods. How do we strengthen the barrier around these pipelines, and where else are there potential problems in Harris County? She said that right now there are still 8 homes that still do not have power, but as of yesterday, as we've been reporting, folks have been able to return home and survey the damage. We saw in all of the video as firefighters were pouring water onto homes to protect them and to protect vehicles, and of course, though, we still saw a significant amount of damage. The heat was just so intense. It was melting playground equipment, roofs, and other things. So a lot of damage there. But firefighters, she definitely was praising their efforts in their response. A couple of people that Judge Hidalgo spoke to, she said in the neighborhood in that Brook Glen subdivision, said that they are very nervous moving forward. They no longer want to live in that area, and that is definitely a concern. She said a lot of folks said they knew those pipelines were there, but obviously they didn't know anything like this could happen. Energy Transfer. Residents in the area reporting, according to Judge Hidalgo, that Energy Transfer has been helpful with reimbursements for things like food and accommodations, shelters for so many folks who had to leave and stay away for a couple of days. She said, though, but the big question is, are they going to step up for the bigger payments? Are they going to step up for the damage done to the homes and to vehicles in the area? That is something that residents are concerned about. Also waiting for insurance adjusters to come out to the area and survey the damage. And again, any financial compensation from Energy Transfer to help people get back on their feet and businesses get back on their feet. She did say, if you guys remember the ITC fire a few years ago that burned for days, firefighters were comparing that fire to this disaster here. But again, she praised firefighters and first responders for their coordination and their efforts, saying that it is a testament to them, really, that there were no other fatalities or major injuries after that explosion and fire on Monday morning. Again, that's the very latest on the pipeline fire in Deer Park. Of course, we're going to always have updates online, and we'll have updates on air. I'm Rekha Muttaraj. I'll see you back on air at 4 o'clock.